Hi, my name's Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach, and I help people do the brain work for resolving and getting rid of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, even if they have had those symptoms for decades. The brain has a beautiful process for this, and that's really what I use to do that. And so that's really where my perspective comes from. And today I want to talk about um, a title that I just created that is not going to come up for me. So the title is One Enemy of Intimacy That Few People Recognize and Resolve. And this is such an important topic because this is really what we're after. This is what we're in this for. This is what we're in relationships for is intimacy. It's what we're going for with children, appropriate intimacy, right? It's what we're going like attunement. I'm talking about connection. I'm talking about I see you, you see me clearly. And that creates a level of intimacy, fulfillment. Gosh, we are lit up by intimacy that really matches us, that really where we feel like someone sees us and they feel like that and we anyway, well, we feel that they see us and they also feel seen. There we go. Words. Let me try see if I can unscramble my brain a little bit here. Um, we want this in each one of our relationships, and it's really difficult. It's because it's I'm going to talk about exactly why, but I really want to jump back here for a second and talk about the definition of intimacy that I really like is the into me see. And that's hard. And it's hard because of how our brains work and how our brains are wired. And I'm going to talk about that here because when you understand that, you can see the simple solution to really being able to see into someone else clearly and accurately. And so that's really where all the fun stuff starts. If you have any questions about um, anything I'm saying, if you have comments, go ahead and share them. I will answer the questions. I'll read your comments. For the most part, and we'll develop this during our time together. So this is talking about intimacy, and this is really one of the ways where we can really feel replenished and connect. Um, some things that happen when we're being intimate with each other is we start exploring some more deeper and deeper layers of ourself, and we start sharing deeper and deeper layers of ourself with others. And this can be phenomenally awesome. And this can be phenomenally painful. And so um, I'm going to talk about this first from the perspective of um, you being able to see somebody else, because sometimes it's easier like that. Okay. So what happens, and this is the one enemy of intimacy that very few people recognize and resolve, and that is flashbacks. The flashbacks that I'm talking about are that are your brain will think that in this moment, the thing that's associated is this issue. And you'll actually see, feel, sense that old issue coming through. And so I want to just broaden your definition for this talk around flashbacks. Flashbacks are not just images that we see. When we see in movies flashbacks, we see them flashing back to scenes. That's not always how it happens for us. It can be just a sensation in our body. It can be a sound, it can be a smell, it can be something that we think belongs here in this moment, but it actually is not from here. And it's our brain pulling stuff up from a past moment right here. And what's really important about this that I just learned about, and I'm so excited, is that when the job of the hippocampus is to wire things to time, is to like to create timelines, right? But when you're really young, or and your hippocampus isn't fully developed, and or if you're having a traumatic experience that things are moving so fast, your the pain, the survival system is moving so fast, it'll bypass the hippocampus. And which this means is that these issues that happen in our early childhood or in traumatic events don't actually get wired into a specific timeline. And so your brain doesn't know really where they belong. And so part of the trauma processing and the trauma healing is the brain really understanding where this is from. And that understanding, when it makes that, is it no longer needs to bring this up here because it's like, oh, it doesn't, it's not, this isn't relevant. Or you'll notice that people will have an understanding this isn't here, and they'll see it as two separate things. A lot of times with flashbacks that come in intimacy are so they haven't had as much time in the sun or open out in the open as some of our other triggers. So they really haven't been processed very much. And so a lot of them, because it's new, uncharted territory within ourself that we're sharing with another person, a lot of this stuff doesn't even have words yet. So it's just a big sensation and it can really be shocking. We can go into panic attacks. We can go into survival states. We can go into defensiveness. We can go into arguing. We can go into irritability. And like we were just trying to be intimate. And all of a sudden, we're just lit up in distress. And that right there, those are what that stuff that's coming in here that's shifting people into a survival state is actually flashbacks. Okay, let me rewind one more time because I'm going to make a couple points and you're going to need to know this stuff before we get there. Um, okay, so also because parts of our brain are not fully developed, including the kind of some filtering systems in our subconscious mind, before the age of 7, there's a lot going into our subconscious mind without a filter. There's just stuff we're absorbing. There's also these traumatic events that are stored with lots of pain, and and especially if we're young, then we may not have had the resources or the support to process those things. And so what happens is they go unstored, unprocessed. But because they're not processed, which means the brain takes it through its healing process, and on the other end, it's like makes sense of it. It gets rid of things that don't belong. It's like, oh, that doesn't belong here. And at the end of this stuff, it really makes things accurate and it stores things very explicitly. Like you understand them. You can see some scenes. You have a time and a place for this. There's some context. But there's insight and there's understanding, and you see your brain start to do some wonderful things with this stuff. It's really very creative. Like when brains process traumatic events, it really makes beautiful things out of it. It's not, the brain doesn't care that this was painful or this shouldn't have happened. It's like it's non-biased up there. It's just like, what am I going to do with this? Ooh, look at all this material, right? So brains are kind of excited about all that stuff. And but if it doesn't get through that process, it doesn't get to be used for wellness and growth, and it doesn't get to have understanding, and it doesn't get words because the words are in the front of the brain. And so all this information and this trauma needs to get there so that all this stuff gets put on it. So if we have these things from early childhood that are coming up in intimacy times, we may not have words for it. We might not even know what's happening. All we know is all of a sudden we're in pain. And in these times, it's because of survival systems, right? It's going on and its job to get us away from pain. We don't really know where the pain is coming from. A lot of times we think the pain is actually coming from our partner. You said this meanly. You said this. I can't believe you did this. Those sorts of things. And we're kind of like confused. And our partner's like, whoa, I'm not doing any of that stuff. Right. And we're like, yes, you are. I'm in pain. So you must be doing this stuff. Right. And now we've got this thing going on here. And now they're like, I never did that. And now they're fighting back because their survival system, because this was an intimate place and it was vulnerable. And now there's a whole fight over who knows what. And actually, the real culprit goes unnoticed because now there's a fight between you and your partner, and you're off feeling hurt and separated and lonely and insecure and all those things. And really, there was stuff that came up in that moment that didn't belong in that moment that confused you but hurt, and it came through your nervous system as pain, as raw pain. Now, if you have been around the block, you might have caught a lot of those things. But as you go on in life and you clean this stuff up, I don't know if this is the same thing with people without complex childhood trauma. If you, I really don't. I don't work with people that, I mostly work with people with complex childhood trauma if we're talking about intimacy. People that come to me that don't have complex childhood trauma, they're not talking to me about the need for intimacy, and I'm not noticing that with them. I'm not noticing that being a big issue. So I can't really speak to that. I don't know what happens with those people. All I know is that for those of us with complex childhood trauma, we begin to filter out the big triggers, right? And like the fact that if you touch my arm, I'll go into a panic attack, right? We filter that stuff out. We're processing that out. That's the big stuff. And that's a very simple enough thing to resolve. Please hear me. If you have, I can't tell you how many people I have helped resolve just like they can't be touched. Otherwise, they'll go into a panic attack or racing thoughts, or that they can't calm down, that they go into a survival state. Um, please resolve that. Definitely reach out to me. I would love to help. Um, but as you work through this stuff, you get more and more intimacy. You get more and more, and oh my gosh, every time you get a new one, it's like, wow, this is great. And then you hit the wall, and you're like, oh, there's more over there, and I'm not there. I want that, right? And then you do that work in there, right? And then you think you're good, and you've grown, and you're like, I'm like at the intimacy banquet over here. And then this is why it's important to learn these tools yourself, because we're always healing and growing, and we'll always run into stuff that our brain just doesn't know what to do with, especially if we've got complex childhood trauma and we did not have healthy models for intimacy. We will be able to, and we'll want to grow into that. We'll want to expand that out. And if you already have models of intimacy and you're still at a wall and you want more, then this is a great way to do this, because you actually are healing your nervous system. You're supporting your nervous system to do its healing and growth work, to make this thing that would have triggered you before, make it so that it doesn't trigger you anymore. You can be in that space, that new level of intimacy, without your whole system freaking out. Of one, like, right, the comfort zone. This helps your brain make a new comfort zone. But also, just when that 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 flashbacks are not coming back in that space, and really that post-traumatic stress are not coming into that space, and it gets more and more subtle, so it can be very difficult to find after a while. And which is awesome. That's a great place to be. But regardless of whether you have been in the healing game for a while, or you're new to this and you're still working on just basic, I can't be touched, right? Or I can't have you talk to me, or I can't have you look at me, or I can't share some of these things while, I just can't give words to that. It doesn't matter where you're at in this journey. Um, and but flashbacks do get in the way of intimacy. So if you are having intimacy issues of any kind, you feel like you're not being able to attune to your child, you're not able to be present for them, and really create that bond over their Legos, right? A lot of times what's going on there are flashbacks. And what happens is that the person is here, and brains start layering all the things it thinks about them to help you see this thing clearly. But it all this stuff hasn't been processed yet, so it's not in a way that will actually help you see this person clearly, and create that intimacy with them. It's actually it'll blind you to them, and it's actually using your brain will use people to reflect your own stuff back at you, because it needs this stuff reprocessed so it can grow and become accurate. And so when you see these things, this happens with your own intimacy toward yourself. If you have body image issues, if you're looking in the mirror, most of the things you're seeing, and you don't like what you see and you're feeling negative and down, most of the things you're seeing are flashbacks in between you and the mirror. You're actually not seeing your image in the mirror yet. You're actually engaged more with the subconscious, emotional, mental stuff that you've experienced in your life. How crazy is that? It's not crazy at all. It's brain function. Okay. But it's really disappointing, because you're like, are you kidding me? And so when I'm working with people and their body image issues, we're taking this stuff out, and all of a sudden they can love themselves. All of a sudden they're seeing the positives into themselves. That's your brain's job. Brains are good at that. Brains know that their job is here to help you feel awesome, and you're the hero of the story. That's right. That's actually a function of narcissism, but it's like imbalanced. So don't be afraid that you're going to be a narcissist with this, where your brain's going to, you keep doing all your emotion work, and you do the positive and the negative. You process both, and you're not going to fall into that category. But let me tell you, if you're not processing the negative, that means only the positive is moving into your prefrontal cortex for growth and healing. And guess what? You're not going to understand all these other parts of you. So you're going to think you're all that in a bag of chips, and you're not going to be very accurate or grounded you're going to be very lopsided. And so when this stuff comes in, you're going to still feel like a bag of chips, all the bag of chips. Okay, let me get a grip. You're going to feel pretty awesome about yourself, but it's going to be well rounded. You're going to understand yourself. You're going to understand some of your limitations. You're going to understand some of your benefits, right? You're going to understand the positive and the negative, and you're going to understand other perspectives, which is not a function of narcissism, right? So don't be afraid of your brain's job to make you awesome. That's what it's here for. But understand that a lot of these times it hasn't done its work, so it can't help you see yourself accurately. It can't help you see your child accurately. It can't help you see your romantic partner accurately. And therefore, when you're talking with them, you're actually talking about something else, and they feel that you're off in left field, and they're like, "Hey, I'm over here," and then you're like, you're still talking to you, but you can only see them over there. It's distorted. And this problem is so subtle, and we've been doing it for so long that we barely recognize it. If this is the first time that you've heard this concept, start looking into it. See what you're feeling in those intimate moments. See what you're thinking. See what your body is, what sensations are going on in your body, and see if they're accurate to the actual situation. And if they're not, you have encountered some flashbacks. You're experiencing flashbacks. And guess what? There are specific strategies to help your brain resolve flashbacks so that it can process them. And then when flashbacks process, they're done. Your brain is like, oh, now your brain may at another time want to reprocess them, but that is a much easier, that should be more fluid of a process, because you're not working through the old stuck traumatic emotions and stress there. So okay, I'm going to back up because there's a couple more things I want to say about this. Um, So, my point, okay, this is what else I learned that I thought was really interesting. I love these people who study the brain, and like, as a healing artist, I don't, um, I don't know all the words, right? I've been doing this stuff for long enough to know like how to help brains heal, and I've been doing that for a while. But boy, when I hear people explain brain function, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's why it works, and then I can go tell you guys why it works. It's just fun stuff. Um, so, um, okay, that hippocampus thing I was talking about earlier in this. Um, well, I don't know if it kind of relates to this, but I think there's more reasons than just the hippocampus challenge. But there was a study done. I don't know by who, because I wasn't paying that good of attention when I was listening to this. I wish I did. And it's just one study. It's not like it needs to be studied a lot more to actually have some understandings and to validate it and to really get some clarity around that. This one study found that most of our interactions as adults have to do with our brain grabbing stuff from before we were 7. Like 90% of our interactions have to do with that time frame in our life. Okay, I don't know about you all, but that was not a fun tap. That was not a fantastic time period of my life. That was not a healthy time period in my life. There was a lot of good there, but I'm telling you, there was a lot of mental illness. I was surrounded by tons of mental illness. And to think that 90% of my interactions are going to be pulled from back there, guess who wants all that stuff processed? Okay. And now I'm not going to say all, because right then that would be all or nothing thinking. And then we don't, we've already been around that block enough times to know that that is not going to benefit us. Me. And so hopefully you too. But when you think about it, because this is how brains work, brains are always pulling from what they know and bringing it into the present, because that's how it understands things. And so if it can get this stuff that was in the past that's trying to come to the present, that's not quite right, but you can get it through the healing pathways, all of a sudden the brain will figure out for itself, oh, this doesn't belong here. Oh, I thought this matched, but it doesn't. And so then it will rewire it itself, and it will stop showing up in this moment, and it'll start showing up in an accurate moment. Or maybe it'll show up in an almost more accurate moment, and you'll see it come out there, and you're like, oh, brain, close, but not quite. And you reprocess that, and all of a sudden it's like, I get it, and it hooks it up properly. And so now that's actually showing up in a very helpful way for you. and you're clearing up this confusion from your present moments, and so you're able to see people, situations, and yourself more and more clearly without the post-traumatic stress clouding your vision. Now, do we ever get to a perfect place of this? I don't think so. I don't know. I'm still exploring that. I still find post-traumatic stress coming up here and there, and I'm like, ooh, look at you. Let's reprocess you. Um, and so and because I don't know that we're supposed to process all of our stuff. I know we're supposed to be mentally well. I know we're supposed to be thinking accurately. I know that our brain has a process for this. I know we can work that process, and I know that our brain function is supposed to help us get what we want. Now, our brain function is not supposed to be perfect. We're not supposed to be perfect down here. So it's so there's so anyway. I'm just saying that it's definitely a journey, and you want these tools so you can help yourself for the rest of your life. You want the strategies. You want to learn and be really good at working with your brain and helping your brain resolve flashbacks, because you can resolve them in 30 seconds. You can help your brain resolve them in 20 minutes, in 40 minutes if it's a big traumatic past event. And then and this really, when we're talking about complex childhood trauma or complex PTSD, there's multiple events that need to be processed. And so you strategically work through each of them. And what's really cool is that your your brain will tell you which ones need to be processed, which ones will give you the freedom that you need now. And that's really what we need to do. We just need to get our lives functioning. We need to get this trauma out of the way so we can have more intimacy. We can have more of what we want, and we can be seen more. We could tolerate being seen more, and we can really grow in those areas and those ways. So um, yeah, this is just such a wonderful, liberating thing to experience. And I think that flashbacks really get a bad rap. And because they have caused so much problems here on the earth, they have, we see all the movies and how they can really, they're the root of so much pain and suffering. But I would say that that's because we haven't been great at helping the brain process these. And that's not my experience with these flashbacks. I have helped veterans. I have helped parents. I have helped children. I have helped people that have been having that are in their 80s. I've been having flashbacks for as long as we can know. Brains heal these, and they heal them really, really quickly. And the more flashbacks you get out of between you and your whoever you're trying to love, whether it's yourself, whether it's your children, whether it's your partner, your friends, oh gosh, the more space you'll have to open your heart without being hammered with flashbacks. That's the good stuff. So, and that's really what I help people do. And so, if this is something you would like to talk to me about, I encourage you to book a call with me by going to rachelmcleod.com/call. And we'll talk about the symptoms you want to get rid of, where you're at right now, where you are right now, and to help you create a plan to get from where you are to where you want to be. So that's a complimentary call that I offer. And so you just choose a call time that works best for you. And then that takes you to a little questionnaire where you will answer the questions that help both you and I prepare for our time together. And then I'll call you at the time that you choose. And it will be me that you speak with. And we'll really look at where you want to go and how to get you there. So that's definitely the opportunity for you if healing is your top priority right now, and that you have the space to do some healing work, because it's this working with me is about rolling up your sleeves, jumping in, and helping your brain heal. So it's awesome. It doesn't take that long to start feeling better, but we are really going for wellness. So that's your invitation. Let me answer some questions. Okay, so Alex says, how do we take first steps of healing if we identified flashbacks? Okay, first steps are with flashbacks, especially painful ones, desensitize, desensitize, desensitize. You want to start getting your brain to pull the pain out. You do not need big skills for this. You do not need advanced skills. You just need to have an intervention that works for you and your brain to desensitize, to help your brain process emotional pain and distress. I find the ones that work best are emotional freedom techniques, thought filled therapy, and um, gosh, there's some uses of EMDR that can be really helpful for everybody, but with people with highly painful trauma and beginning to do this work, EMDR can be really awful, an awful, awful match. So, um, but if it, but if it's not, it's not. So, when I'm working with people, the first thing I do is start to test which interventions will work best for them. And so we want to get 1 to 2 on board, and but as long as you have one and it's doing a millimeter of work, not a millimeter, like a little tiny scoop of work, you're in. That's really that is, as far as your brain's concerned, it is having a party. It doesn't care how small of assistance it's getting. It will take that and run with it. Um, but most people get pretty big results from emotional freedom techniques and um, uh, thought filled therapy. My favorite intervention is a breathing exercise. And these interventions are things I give video trainings of these in my program. It's part of the curriculum that I offer, but I also send these out for without being in my program and my email list. And so you can watch those trainings, learn about emotional freedom techniques, and you can learn about my favorite trauma processing intervention, and you can try them out and you can see how that works for you. Um, but that's it. And if they help you bring down the intensity of what you're working on, that's really where it's at. And with flashbacks, the thing is that that as you'll if the intervention stops giving you any desensitization there, then that's when you'll know that you need deeper strategies, and that's you can learn those. You can find a professional to work with you on those, and yeah. So that's a core function of my program, Inner World Transformation. I make that available as a self study online course. If you're interested in that, send me a private message. We'll chat about it. I just want to make sure that's the right fit for you. We don't have to have a whole phone conversation, but I I would like to ask some questions because I don't want anybody to invest in something with me that they're not ready for. They're not going to get results with. This is really about results, and I don't want you wasting your time. But for I think that a high percentage of people are ready to go with inner world transformation now. So that's another resource for you. That's really a great option for people who really want privacy as they're going through their healing journey, or people who are already working with a therapist and they love their therapist, they're very supportive, but their therapist doesn't understand this type of work. This is a very different work. This takes very specialized training. And so this way you can do this work while still staying with that therapist. And there's lots of different reasons people would choose the online self-study course. So, and then, yeah, so those are some options for you if you need advanced skills. There's a lot of work you can do by yourself just by picking up an intervention and getting to work. But this is not something you want to drag on for years. So it's better just if make a decision and go, right? And so that's if you're at a place where you're like, I want to make a decision, I'm just not certain where to go. That's really a great time to book a call with me and let's chat about what the best next steps are. So that's the first step with healing flashbacks. Um, yeah, good, good, good. So he says you find excellent words to help clear things up. Awesome. I love words that help clear things up. Oh gosh. Um, that makes me want to jump down a different trauma challenge, but perhaps I'll talk about that another time. Um, how does being an artist help you be a healer? Uh, in the world of healing, there's different modalities, right? And these modalities are great, but people are different. And sometimes when you know a modality, you can kind of invent around it. When you know multiple modalities, like I do, um, you also see some themes, and you also see some places where you can just jump off and invent whatever you want to, like an artist would with a canvas. And that's kind of where I'm at over here. Um, I have so many ways of finding information from the body. I can really find so many ways of finding where someone is stuck. And um, because I've worked with so many different brains and so many different people, so many different challenges, so many different symptoms, that and I've had enough time to say, oh, this one usually falls with this. Oh, this one usually falls with this. And there's just an art to this that is deeper and more profound than a science. The science says that brains heal, right? The art is to help the brain heal. And there's a science to it. Sometimes I think I could make a program that would help somebody resolve their disorder. Like I have made that program, but like I artificial intelligence. Like once you get the handle of this stuff, it's so simple. And um and so it's but I think that there is, like, when you start coloring outside the lines and you get better and faster results, and it's like you see artists that draw, and it's like exact and it's cool, but then you see other ones that will do the same thing and you're like, whoa. And you don't know why, but it's just, and I think that that's really where the art is that I'm trying to play in over here. Um, but most of the time, I'm really helping people become their own artist. And so sometimes I actually don't do the healing art as much as I'm coaching people to become their own artists, and then I get to celebrate all their ideas and success and how they're creating their own transformations. So, but really, what I really am doing right now in this role um, is teaching people the foundational modalities needed to really dance this healing dance. So yeah, there's that. All right. He says, I will look back into it and get back to you. I'm hooked in so far. Okay, and absolutely. I encourage that. And it's definitely an investment of your time and energy, right? And just being honest with yourself, whether it's time for healing or it's time for deeper supports. So yeah, I think that's true. Alex says that's really helpful. I like to think of healing as an artistic expression with a scientific media now. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the arts and sciences just keep helping each other, and it just goes together very nicely. So all right, everyone, think about this with your intimacy and get that enemy out of there. Gosh, I hate to even refer to symptoms as enemies, but symptoms are not enemies. But symptoms are enemies to the things we want. And so the symptoms are really helpful because they will tell you exactly where your brain is needing help. And it's your brain's way of saying, I do not have this. We are not okay right here. We need some help. And that's great. You have exact feedback. You have all the answers. You have all the things you need for healing right now. Your body is already telling you where to start. So with that said, enjoy your evening and talk to you soon.